Good evening, and thanks for joining tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments, where tonight we're going to take a look at the 10 minutes of code for the TI-Innovator Hub. We see that many of you are joining us for the first time, so we'd like to offer a special welcome if this is your first T-Cubed Professional Development webinar. We'd also like to thank everyone for completing the live survey on the right side of your screen. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus near Pittsburgh, where I use TI technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. I'm really excited to be joined tonight by two panelists, Fred Foch and Ellen Brown. Fred holds both a bachelor's and a master's degree in chemistry from Missouri State University, and is in his 27th year teaching science at Glendale High School and Drury University. He's taught a variety of classes in his tenure, including STEM, AP Chemistry, Organic Chemistry, as well as AP Physics. Fred incorporates pedagogically meaningful technology into his curriculum, engaging his students in science curriculum. Fred, thanks so much for being with us tonight. And Ellen is a T-Cube national instructor and lives and teaches at the Pomfret School in Pomfret, Connecticut. After teaching music for 25 years, she switched over to teaching math and was immediately captivated by the possibilities of TI technology. Ellen was a participant in TI and Ohio State University's Connected Classroom Study from 2005 to 2009, and became a TI instructor, a T-Cubed instructor in 2010. She enjoys conducting TI workshops and is passionate about helping educators attain their goals. In addition to teaching math and doing dorm duty, Ellen also mentors the first, second, and third year teachers, all subjects, at Pomfret School. Ellen, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, it should be fun tonight.
We're expecting a large crowd, so your audio is muted. Feel free to send any questions to Fred or Ellen using the Q&A window on the right side of your screen. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the event certificate of attendance at the conclusion of the webinar. We're going to be doing some coding tonight, and it's going to be really difficult to try and follow along as well as try and do maybe the coding on your handheld live. So our recommendation is that once the recording is available, which should be in a few days, that's the best way to follow along. That way you can go at your own pace and pause and rewind the recording as necessary. We hope you don't have any audio issues tonight, but in the event that you do, try selecting Communicate from the WebEx menu, choose Audio Broadcast, and then click Join. At this point, Fred is going to discuss our agenda. Fred?
Okay, thanks, Mike. We have a lot to do tonight, and I'm really eager to share with you this new product from Texas Instruments. And I would like to kind of give you an overview tonight of what the TI-Innovator is as a technology and how it fits into your classroom, how it works with the calculator, and also some of the online resources that are available to you to do some of the content that's available presently for the Innovator. And then I'm going to kind of show you some extensions of what's beyond the resources. So then I think, Ellen, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to do with this?
So last spring, I piloted some of these lessons in my mathematics class, so not a science class, but just Algebra 2, and I want to share what went well.
Thanks so much. Be sure to stick around at the end because we're going to have not only a complimentary giveaway for, not only a giveaway for a complimentary registration for the T-Cubed International Conference, which is going to be in Chicago this year, but word on the street is that we're also going to be able to give away 2 TI-Innovator hubs as well tonight. So be sure to stick around to the very end. We'll be giving away those those things. Thanks so much. So Fred, I'm going to give you control, and it's all yours, Fred.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. Well, I'd like to get started actually kind of giving you an overview of the technology itself. And specifically tonight, we're going to be looking at one of the content areas for the Innovator, which is 10 minutes of code for the TI Innovator. You'll find that on our website, and I'll point you to that a little bit later on. But there are several other strands of content that are available for you to use in your classroom. But tonight we'll be looking at this one in particular. I would like to give you kind of an overview of what the Innovator Hub is. Texas Instruments is a company that's interested in produces chips for the world. There are chips in many of the cars that are on the road now, or chips that are in some of the GPS and other types of cell phones and all, that all contain Texas Instruments chips. And one of the devices that Texas Instruments builds is what's called kind of a reference board for engineers to be able to explore and experiment with the chips that Texas Instruments sells. And the engineer would actually get this tool, in this case a MSP432 Launchpad. They would get this tool from the Texas Instruments website, and along with this tool, they would get all sorts of supporting information and reference designs and that sort of thing, so that an engineer at a company in the real world would be able to explore the Texas Instruments chip in their design. So we thought that that was a valuable story at Texas Instruments, to be able to bring a real engineer's tool into the classroom. But that tool is not ready for middle school and high school grades. It has pins on it that a student could poke themselves with. The chips are kind of exposed electronically, and it's perhaps a little bit too delicate for those hands in the freshman classroom and that sort of thing. So we decided to put it in an enclosure. And so an enclosure was built around the Texas Instruments Launchpad board, again, that design reference board that an engineer would use. And we kind of had in mind, what would a middle school and high school teacher want to be able to use in their classroom, and what would be durable for their classroom. We wanted something that could be dropped on the floor and it wouldn't be shattered and that sort of thing. And so we came up with an enclosure, but one of our ideals was to keep the Launchpad visible to the student. We kind of valued the idea that we need students to be able to look under the hood a little bit. I think that, of course, they're not going to understand everything that's on there, but I think there is a gee whiz factor that is important, where students can see the parts of what they're working with, and maybe it in just some small way demystifies what they're working with. Because in STEM education, we want them to be able to tinker, we want them to be able to explore, we want them to understand how things work. Because this is where new innovation comes from that common experience that they gain when they're young and they're fiddling around. So perhaps this is the pocket watch that's taken apart and explored, so to speak, for this generation. But we thought that it also needed to have some accessible ports to it. The Innovator is designed for both input and output. In other words, input coming from sensors and output going to various types of actuators. Maybe those actuators are motors, maybe they're relays to switch something off or on, maybe they're lights, any number of output devices. The reason why input and output is important is that in most processes that occur in consumer products, there is input and output, whether it's the input of touching the thaw button on a microwave and the output of the power driving the microwave transmitter that cooks the food, or maybe it's a touch on a screen that then dials a phone number and then turns on a speaker that you can then hear a conversation with. Those are examples of inputs and outputs. And so we wanted to build those things into the Innovator. And those inputs and outputs are centered around a group of sensors that are called Grove sensors. Grove is the manufacturer, and those sensors are very inexpensive. They are great for gluing into projects, and if they break, they're not that expensive. Now, these types of sensors don't take the place of a vernier sensor in that if you want to do data collection with one of our data collection solutions, the vernier sensors are very well calibrated and are very precise for doing data collection. But that's not the type of input that this is necessarily used for. We're not concerned with this being absolutely accurate, although they are quite accurate. That's not the point. It's not data collection. It's more about process control and programming and that sort of thing. We also put what's called a breadboard connector on here, and that breadboard connector allows students to use jumper cables to connect their Innovator to a breadboard where they can actually build circuits and explore electronics and then write programs on their calculator that control the circuits that they've built onto that breadboard. So it's a very extensible product. It can be plug and play, or it can be very wide open to where students kind of have free reign to build as they choose. All of these ports have been hardened electronically so that they are, again, durable to the middle school and high school classroom. You don't have to worry as much about the students breaking them either physically or electrically. And then there's an I2C port on there, which is a kind of a funny little port that we might see future products coming through. We also put some built-in devices. So we wanted people to be able to take this out of the box and get started right away in their classroom without having to plug in any sensors or any sort of output devices or that type of thing. It would be just something that they could use in a math classroom. They could just take it out of the box, and the students could get their calculators, and right away they could start writing code to do various tasks that could be applicable to the math or the science classroom, or just coding in general. So there's a lot of different uses, but those built-in devices are a red LED, which we've named in the software as light. There is also what's called an RGB LED, which is a little acronym for red, green, blue. So this is a light that can be turned on differentially for red, green, and blue colors, and it's kind of fun to be able to explore different mixtures of color values to see how they interact and how they're perceived by the eye. Some neat physiology there. We also included a speaker into the device, so students can write a simple program to make a sound that has a particular frequency. And I'm going to show you an example tonight where students can compare different intervals and see how they hear, and then also look at them mathematically to see if they make sense mathematically. So some interesting applications there. And then there is one built-in sensor, the light brightness sensor, and this is, as the name implies, it measures how bright ambient light is in a room. And it's a fun way for students to put some input into their device and make some decisions with it. So right out of the box, without any sort of buying any sort of kit or any sort of sensors or other things that would plug in, you can do a bunch of activities just by plugging it in and getting started. So there are several resources to help teachers get ready to bring coding into their classroom. Now, coding, of course, is computer programming, and at Texas Instruments, we found that many of the people around the office here actually got started programming using a Texas Instruments calculator. And so we thought it was a valuable way for young people to begin learning coding, because we now know in our community and in our society that students need to have the skills of computer programming, whether they're in a math class, a science class, or whatever class or major they decide to study. Coding is going to be a big part of what they do and what's important for our workforce. And so we felt like the 10 minutes of, or the 10 minutes of code that is being done by Texas Instruments, one of our content strands, is a nice way to kind of ease students into learning just the basics of code, and those basics of code transfer to any language. So there's no reason to get caught up on, you know, what language is being taught here, because things like variables and control structures, those are there in all languages. And after all, this is an introduction. This isn't meant to be the last thing they do. This is maybe one of the first things they do. And so this is something that they can do with technology that they already have in their classroom. It runs on several different Texas Instruments calculators, and the activities are on the web. They can be downloaded, and kind of as the name says, 10 minutes of code. The idea is that this is kind of a little, you know, a little icebreaker or a little warmer-upper for the students right at the beginning. So kind of a bell ringer for when they're just getting in their seats. They can go pick up a calculator, grab a worksheet, and do one of these little activities. It only takes about 10 minutes, or maybe you're trying to fill in a little bit of time after an assembly or something like that, and you can kind of work these in. And they are sequential, but they don't. You can take a pause between them. You can do one or two, and then not visit this for another week or so, and then come back. So, so that's one of the stepping stones to coming up to speed of using this technology, is the 10 minutes of code. The next thing, and this is our topic for tonight, is the 10 minutes of code for the TI-Innovator. So you don't have to have the Innovator Hub to get started with coding with Texas Instruments. But if you do have it, it's a great way to introduce the students to coding, doing something that is called physical computing. That is, computing where the action of their code has an effect in the world around them. And my experience has been that students enjoy that. When a student writes a piece of code that makes a motor spin or makes a light flash or a sound, that there's a hook there, that they find that engaging. And what's more, they can relate it to the real world, because they have devices in their pockets that are the same type of device. It's a physical device. There's code running on their cell phone that makes it do all the things that it does. So we're going to be taking a look at this, and we're going to be doing a couple of these introductory lessons. These lessons, again, are on the web right now. You can go and download them. They're available for both the 84 Plus CE as well as the Nspire CX. Both platforms support the Innovator Hub and the 10 minutes of code activities. And like 10 minutes of code, these activities are, they could be done standalone, although it's probably best for them to do a couple of the 10 minutes of code activities just to get started with how to open a program, how to save it, and that sort of thing. However, you could get started from scratch with these using the hub, and so a great addition to the content that's available for the TI products. The next one is called the Path to STEM Projects, and this is another content area where there are 6 units, and each unit has a skill builder and a project, and each one of these units takes the student through a skill that's essential for them to take control of their hub. And these skills that they're learning are fundamental skills that are necessary in computer science and in engineering. They are topics like setting digital input, getting digital input, setting analog output, getting analog input, things that really allow them to get down to the kind of nitty-gritty and do some building. my experience has been, as we were developing this, that a lot of the things that are on the web for similar types of products, they're recipes that show the students how to do it, but the students aren't, the people that are building it or doing it don't really get the opportunity to learn why they're doing what they're doing. They tend to follow a recipe, so to speak, of how to plug things in, and then they copy code, and they get it to work, and there's certainly some gee whiz in that, but in education, of course, we want them to know at a deeper level. And so the Path to STEM projects, then, is a way for students to be able to really get the skills required for them to synthesize projects of their own at that very highest level of learning. If they can create something from scratch, then we all know that they know it well. Now, this is another strand that is completely independent of 10 minutes of code. It's completely independent of 10 minutes of code with the Innovator. So this is a strand that stands alone. Now, it could be done after those other two, and that would probably be helpful. Then we also have yet another series of lessons, and these lessons do not involve programming. These are lessons, interactive lessons, that instruct the students to build some device. So there's engineering here in terms of actually using the sensors and the actuators that come in some of the activity packs of the Innovator to build different projects that they then hook up to their Innovator to explore a content area that they are already teaching in their science classroom. Things like cellular respiration or photosynthesis or position and time and motion. So these would be very appropriate for somebody who had some innovators and wanted to bring them into their science classroom, and they weren't interested in really learning about coding, but instead they were interested in engineering and building projects to hook up to the Innovator and not really worrying about too much about the coding. So that kind of is a rundown of the various activities in the content areas. So at this time, what I would like to do is to kind of show to you where these are on the website. So education.ti.com is the website that we're going to. So you can get that just by typing in education.ti.com. If you go to that website, you can go to products here and go down to the TI-Innovator Hub. And when you do that, it'll take you to this page that we had originally linked to. And there's some fun little things to watch about kind of the theme and the motivation behind this project. And you'll find here under Code Design Build, this is where all of our content is. And so 10 minutes of code for the TI Innovator is right here. And here's where you choose your platform. And so tonight we're working on this one. And you can see that it kind of shows you how all of this works. And you can work through them on the website, or you can just download the activities and print them out and hand them to your students, however you choose to do it. So that's the 10 minutes of code. Here's where the science through engineering design is, and also the Path to STEM projects. Now, the actual 10 minutes of code without the Innovator is in a separate area, but all four of those are available to the teacher in both student and teacher documents. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about, now that you've kind of seen the website for that, for the content, is I wanted to kind of show you a little bit about how to prepare your device. If you have a TI-84 plus CE, you need to ensure that it has the latest operating system 5.2. And so let's take a look at where that is. Again, you can find that off of the education.ti.com. And I think, here we go. And so when you go to this website, you'll find the operating system that you'll download and install just like any other upgrade that you would do. But something that's important is that there's an application that you have to also load. So if you're updating your handhelds, be sure that you also grab this application. So these applications are nothing new. We've done these for a long time at Texas Instruments, and you'll find them for all sorts of different things, from data collection to mathematical and geometry applications. And so that's the update. One of the things I did forget to show you that I would like to show you back here on this website is down here where we have the, sorry, I'm probably making you dizzy there. If you go to resources here, under the hub, so I'm under TI-Innovator Hub and the Launchpad, that is, and I'm going to go down here to Guidebook. And if you go, you can download it, of course, but if you view it, what this is, this gives you all that you're interested in knowing about the hub command. So once we get into programming, this is the reference that you'll be interested in to try to figure out how to do all the things that I'm going to kind of show you how to do. And it kind of runs through the application, the hub application, and all of that sort of thing. So once you kind of get beyond the basics of learning how to open and start a program, and you're interested in starting to write your own things, then this is kind of a resource that you'll use to get yourself there. So, all right, good. So at this point, are there any questions? Mike, are you getting any questions out there that we should take a look at?
No questions yet. Everything that's been mentioned, I think, has gotten some sort of response. So I think so far we're good.
Excellent. Okay. So let's see. Mike, can you see my screen okay?
Yep, it looks like I see a TI-84 Plus CE and the TI-Innovator Hub.
Yeah. So everybody, I'm using a video camera tonight on our WebEx to kind of show you some of this in real time. And so I wanted to kind of give you an overview of the hub kind of as it is here. And so here's the Innovator Hub. And you can see through this clear plastic top, you can see the launch pad down in the enclosure, and you can see the MSP 432 processors and all of the electronics that go with it. On the side here, you can see the input and output. These are actually the output ports. Of course, they say output. And so this is where information that comes out of the Innovator, you plug in here, like, for example, if you were to control a motor information comes out of the Innovator to control that motor, that would be an output, so it would be plugged in here. Similarly, inputs are over here, and so you have 3 inputs. So at any given time, you can run 3 input sensors and 3 output devices. There's also the breadboard connector here, and so this is a place where you can take jumper pins and plug into the breadboard connector and then hop those jumper pins over to a breadboard where a circuit can be built, and then it can be powered from the Innovator, and you can do all sorts of interesting experiments. Those are the types of things that are in the Path for STEM projects. The Path to STEM projects uses that. On the flip side here is our brightness sensor. This is where we measure the brightness. We have a plug-in here for the connection to the calculator. This is the calculator connection. And then on this other side, there's one additional connection right here, and this is for external power when we're trying to drive high current devices like motors and relays and things like that. You need a little more juice than what the hub can supply. And so those are all, that's a rundown of the TI-Innovator. So now let's take a look at the Innovator and the calculator. Now, I'm going to have to kind of fight an exposure issue here, so deal with me, bear with me a little bit here. So we'll see if we can get the exposure right on this. Okay. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug my TI-84 into the hub. And so right here on the side of the 84 is the USB port. And I'm going to use a unit-to-unit cable. This unit-to-unit cable has two sides. One side is a side, and the other side is a B side. So maybe you can see the A and B on there. And I like to think that the B side goes into the hub, B for hub. And so the B goes into the hub. I'll plug that in right here. And so I've got that plugged in. And then the A side goes into the calculator. This is kind of a funny little cable, but it's a USB cable that's designed this way because the calculator is supplying power to the hub, and that's kind of a special consideration for the USB. All right. So now I've got these two together, and the first thing I'd like to do is to write a simple little program to take control of the hub. Okay? Let me try to get my screen is misbehaving here, so see if I can get this to get my exposure a little better. I think that's a little better maybe. Okay. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take control of your Innovator using a very simple little program to turn on the red LED on the hub that is called Light. That's the name that has been given to that particular device. So in order to write a program on the TI-84, there's the program key right here. I'm going to press that program key. And I'd like to reiterate what Mike mentioned earlier, and that is these are all pre-written, and I think that they're available for you to download or they've been sent to you. And so I don't encourage you to try to follow along, just kind of watch, and then you can take a look at them at your leisure. And then it's also, this WebEx has been recorded, and so you can kind of watch it that way. But I'm going to go over here to New, and I'm going to create a new one. And I'm just going to call it Light. So I'll go ahead and type in okay, so there's Light. All right, good. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that light on. And I'm going to do this by accessing the program menu that we loaded. Remember I told you that you have to have the Hub app loaded. And so I'm going to interact with that menu now. And you interact with it pretty straightforward. You just press that program key again, and we'll be coming back to that program key quite often. This is one of those things that the more you do it, the more you become familiar with it, and pretty soon it's pretty quick and easy. But I'm going to go down here to my first command, send set, and it asks me to choose what I want to turn on, and there are many things I can turn on or manipulate. In this case, I'm going to turn on the light. And now I need to tell it what I'm going to do to that light. I'm going to set it to on. So I'm going to go to Program again, and I'm going to go to Settings, and I'm going to choose 2. So set light to, and I'm going to set it to on. So I'm going to go to, once again, Program, Hub, Settings, on. Okay, so send light to on. Okay. Set light to on. That's my command. So I'm going to press enter, and now that's been entered. So now I'm going to quit this, and I'm going to go to Program, and I'm going to go down to Light, and I'm going to run it. And you'll see that this little light came on here. So I've taken control of this piece of hardware using the program that I wrote here on the calculator. So this is an entire programming device here. You can set this whole system on your desktop. Students can work with this at their desk. They don't need a laptop computer to write their code. They don't need any special compilers loaded on their computer to write their code. They just grab their TI calculator, plug in their Innovator, and they're off and running, writing code to access kind of the physical world around them. Let's go ahead and modify that code just a tad bit here. I'm going to go over to Edit, and I'm going to go down to my program light. And I set that light on, but now let's do something a little bit different. I want to wait just a little bit of time, and then I want to turn it off. So I'm going to go to Program, Hub, Wait. Let's wait 3 seconds, and then I'm going to turn it off. So Program, Hub, Send, Set, Light, Program, Hub, Settings, to Program, Hub, Settings, Off. So when you read this, it kind of makes sense. Set the light on, wait for 3 seconds, and turn it off. Okay, let's see how this does. So I'm going to go to Program and Light. Okay. Now I should probably reset this so that now that'll make more sense since it was on from before. So I'll run it one more time. So there it's on for 3 seconds, and it turns off. Okay. All right, good. Well, now from here, we've kind of started the idea of how one writes a program. And so now what I'd like to try to do is to go through a few of the programs that I've pre-written. There are a number of programs that are available on, that have been sent to you, I believe, or are available to you through this WebEx that you can explore at your own leisure. We only have time for a few, but I'll kind of show you some of the fun ones that I think are out there. So I'm going to go to one here. Here's kind of a fun one. We'll see what this does. So we'll stop that. Did you hear that, Mike? Did you hear that?
I sure did.
You heard "Take Me Out to the Ball Game"?
I sure did. I'm getting pumped for baseball for next year.
Man, those Cubs, that was for them, wasn't it? All right, so that was an example of the speaker. So the speaker that's on here. Let's take a look at something with the color. Looks like this is running a color. I don't know if you can notice that, but it kind of looked yellow to me. I know the exposure of this camera is a little off, but let's go to Program and Edit and look at color and see what it did. Okay, it looks like I turned on the color, that's the RGB LED, and I gave it 3 values. These are red, green, and blue. So I gave it a lot of red, a little bit of green, and no blue. Well, bright red and kind of soft green and emitted light is yellow. And so I then turned it on. I waited 5 seconds, and then I turned it off. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Let's see what else we have in here. I'm going to take a look at the brightness sensor. So I hit the brightness sensor just now, and it returned a value of 0.25. When I point this at my screen, my computer screen, you can see the value goes up a little bit. When I cover the brightness sensor, it goes down a little bit. And so that's just a simple little input from the brightness sensor. So that's kind of interesting. When I go to Program, I can take a look at that. And to get data, I send read brightness, and then I get the value, and then I displayed it. That's all that little program did, is it read the brightness sensor, it then got it from the Innovator, and then it displayed it. Okay. I just have time for a few more here, and then I'll turn you over and hear some of the fun stuff that Ellen has been doing with her students. Since a lot of you are math teachers out there, I wanted to show you this one. This is kind of a fun one, where students can explore pitch. So the innovator can play a note of a particular frequency, and it's kind of an interesting question to ask the students. When we hear notes, is there a natural interval that makes it sound like it's an even step, the way that the keys on a piano sound even as you go up from left to right? It sounds like they're ascending, and each step is kind of an even tonal increment. You can explore this in mathematics, and what you'll find is that if you do a linear increase, it does not sound quite uniform. That actually what it takes is kind of an exponential type of increment, and that's what we have here. So we'll play this a little bit. Okay, so Mike, did you hear that all right?
I did, Fred.
Great. Let's take a look at what that scale did. It starts off with a function that uses tuning 440, and then it uses the definition of an octave, which is a doubling of frequency every 12 keys of the piano. I have a loop that goes from -12 to +12, so this is 1 octave below tuning 440 to 1 octave above tuning 440, and then it sends that calculated value of pitch to the innovator using the eval command, which evaluates expressions, because we are on a calculator that can do some neat stuff. And then I stored that data into lists. Well, I guess that means that I can graph this data, and after all, this is a graphing calculator, and we are perhaps in a math class, so let's take a look at what happens here. I take a look at my stat plot. It looks like I've got that turned on, and maybe I'll connect the dots here, and then we'll graph it, and sure enough there, if I zoom this maybe a little bit, see what it looks like zoomed in, and you can see that that's kind of a nice exponential increase. So, so that kind of gives you a little idea of some of the many things that you can do. If this knob is kind of a fun one. This one you take a little potentiometer, so this one's a little bit more of an extension. This is a little device that comes in the breadboard pack, and a potentiometer is, it's kind of a resistor that you can change its value by twisting. It's a little bit more than that, but in any case, I can take that and I can plug it into my Innovator port, and then when I twist this knob, I can read that value into a program, and in this program called knob, the effect is to change the slope of the line of a equation, so students can have a little bit of experiment with twisting the knob and seeing how it affects the slope of a line, and it also changes the pitch in proportion with the slope. So that's kind of a fun one. This Mendel is a fun one for biologists. This one explores a monohybrid cross, and it generates a cross between two heterozygous parents, and it comes up with the both the genotypic and phenotypic ratios from basic principles. So students are actually writing code to explore a little bit of biology. So here's an example of coding that can be done in a biology class as maybe a capstone project in a biology project-based learning setting. Similarly, this little decay one uses the innovator to kind of make a little Geiger counter. Now, the innovator is not measuring the actual flux of radioactive particles, but what it's doing is it's simulating radioactive decay by random events, and then every time that happens, it makes a little tick that makes it sound like a Geiger counter. So that's kind of a fun one for chemistry or physics. And so I encourage you, when you get an innovator and your calculator, to explore some of these different programs and see what kinds of fun things you can get it to do. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ellen, who has recently been working with this in her classroom and has had had the students do some pretty neat stuff. So I'm going to pass this over to Ellen here. And Ellen, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You need to give me.
Yeah, I'm trying. Let's see here. There we go. I think you've been passed over. You got her?
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. I can see you coming on now.
Okay, so let me get my video. So as I was saying before, I did some of these in my math class, so an Algebra 2 regular level, and I did a 10 minutes of code lesson with them just so they could find the commands on the calculator and be a little bit familiar with that. And then I did this speaker program. Being a music teacher, of course, it appealed to me. And they designed the speaker and did the coding for it. And every student definitely had success. So what I did is if you can see on my screen right now, this is the materials I gave them. You can see a blown up picture of the wiring diagram and some music for them. And then what I did is I gave it out in my first class, and I noted all the missteps, and then I rewrote some of it for the next class, and they had just a marvelous time doing it. So I'll show a little video that I have. I hope you can see it. And it should be playing. There we go. So that was the wiring diagram that I made a little more detailed for the students. There's my students. I simply gave them the materials and gave them the diagram and said, have at it. And they worked together in pairs, one innovator for each 2 students. And by the end of the 80 minutes, every student had coded, first did a CAM song and then coded their own song.
Now, Ellen, are they making their own speaker there?
They are making their own speaker. So they have the little styrofoam cups there and the wiring, and they wired it up and hooked it to a battery. And here's some still shots. So they're reading the directions there. And I hope you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. And I basically just let them have at it and to figure out how to design it so that it would work. And at the end, there's a video of one pair of students when they actually got it to work. They were pretty happy. And then once one set got it to work, boy, everybody else really wanted to get it to work as well. So, and then they wanted to do this kind of project every day.
We got it!
Okay, so I wanted to leave questions time for questions for how to do this or how to set it up or anything like that. So I'm not looking at the chat, Mike or Fred, so if there's any questions on there.
Ellen, we actually did get a question. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this or not, but from Becky, she was wondering if there's any good basic programming available resources for TI-Nspire. She found a lot for the TI-84 family, but not for TI-Nspire.
Well, the whole 10 minutes of code lessons are for the Nspire. These students were all working with the Nspire, and they all did one 10-minute of code lesson just so they could find the command buttons, and all of that is on the education.ti.com website. 10 minutes of code for the Nspire as well.
And how much prior programming experience did your students have with TI-Nspire?
None. So I did one lesson, one 10-minute lesson one day, and then I gave this to them like a class or two later, and they were all able to do it, and they just loved it.
Great, thank you.
Ellen, I might add that not only are the 10 minutes of code available for CE and CX, but also the 10 minutes of code for the Innovator as well as the Path to STEM projects. All 3 of those areas are available on both platforms.
Right, and the other thing, Fred, that I wanted to mention, but you were on the education.ti.com. If you go to the Teachers Lounge on any of those, there's a splash screen that says Teachers Lounge. You can download all the PDFs at once, which is really handy. So instead of going to each individual lesson, so I found that the students did better when I had paper copies for them because they could write on it and kind of look at it rather than always looking at their screens. So I downloaded it from the Teachers Lounge area.
Now, Ellen, did I hear you say that you changed part of the lesson?
Well, I gave the
speaker lesson?
Well, I didn't change the speaker lesson itself. I just changed the diagram because I noted where they were having missteps and where they weren't connecting things correctly or not being careful about, like, sanding the ends of the wire before they wrapped it around the straw kind of thing.
Right.
And so then just noted some missteps just so that the next class wouldn't make all the same mistakes. I mean, I don't mind that kids making mistakes. That's how they learn, but not ones that don't really help them.
Sure, no, I agree. But I think what's interesting is that you took those lessons, you downloaded them, and you kind of made them your own by editing them. So all of these lessons are in editable form, and parts can be deleted or, you know, additions can be made and that sort of thing.
Right, and also it depends on the level of your students. So some of my kids that were really just into it, they went ahead and kept coding and made their song longer because I only required them to do like the first 8 notes of Ode to Joy, and some of them went on and just did the whole thing, and so that was really fun.
Excellent.
Hey, Fred, we actually had a question a little while back from Casey. Whenever you were talking about the hybrid cross, she wanted to know if it could, if that was just mono hybrid or if it could do di-hybrid.
Well, it's a program that I wrote that would be a model for students to write. So my idea would be that a teacher would start with the ideas of independent assortment and segregation and that sort of thing from Mendel's laws, and then they would try to, as a class, come up with the program that I've written as an example. So that kind of idea, if you code it, you know it. And so biology, as we know, is heavy into bioinformatics, and programming is important in biology. And so to answer her question, it's just a monohybrid right now. But, it could be easily changed into a dihybrid as well. The point is that with programming, it's wide open. And these aren't meant to be programs necessarily for teachers to download and use, although that'd be great to do, and they're certainly available. The idea is that maybe, to use it as a model of how a teacher might bring programming into their classroom as perhaps one more way to represent the information that they've learned in a topic and to incorporate it into a project in project-based learning, and importantly, introduce the students to coding in high school and middle school.
Thanks, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see any questions coming at this point, so we're going to begin wrapping things up tonight. If you do have any last-minute questions for Fred or Ellen, please feel free to try and get those asked. I know they'll work really hard to try and get those questions answered. I did want to share a couple things that are available on our website, education.ti.com. First, I know that I think, Fred, you already referenced this, but I think it's good to see it again. If you go under Products, and then TI-Innovator Hub, this is a great place to get a lot of information. For instance, I think some people are asking about how much the Innovator costs and where you can buy it. And so if you click on where to buy, you can find lots of great resources to get in contact with our educational dealers. Also, under the Professional Development tab, you'll find webinars and tutorials. Again, I mentioned that a lot of you, this is your first webinar, and hopefully you're enjoying it. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're interested in this format and looking at future webinars, feel free to click on Live Webinars. And then you can take a look at all the upcoming webinars we have for the remainder of the fall and also the current spring series. Specifically right now, the spring series that we have loaded is specifically just for our calculus focused webinar that we're doing on Thursday nights. It's not every Thursday, as you can tell, but we're really excited to be making connections with a lot of other calculus teachers around the United States. When you leave the webinar, a brief survey will automatically appear in your browser, and your feedback really guides us as we plan some of these future online events. So we hope you really share your thoughts in the post-webinar survey. As mentioned earlier, we're really excited that tonight we're not only giving away a T-Cubed International Conference registration, but we're also going to be giving away 2 TI-Innovator Hubs. So tonight's winners for the TI-Innovator Hubs, one each, is Teresa Pruitt and Joan Hecht. So Teresa and Joan, congratulations. We'll be in touch over the coming days with more information. And the winner of the T-Cubed International Conference registration is Christina Frazier. So Christina, again, congratulations as well. And we will be in touch soon over email with more information. Many of you tonight were really excited about what you may have seen, and you're showing that excitement in the chat window and asking great questions. So please feel free to continue that conversation on any of the major social media outlets. To receive a certificate of attendance, go ahead and click the link in the chat window. Also listed is a link for the documents, which we promised you tonight. So, for instance, a lot of the files that Fred was sharing earlier, those coding files, are included in those documents. If you happen to miss the certificate or the documents right now, links, have no fear. You'll automatically get a follow-up email in a couple days with a link to the recording, as well as a link to the certificate and a link to the documents as well. If you happen to be watching this on demand, please feel free to copy that link into your favorite browser to receive your certificate. If you're in need of some post-webinar follow-up, maybe you have some burning questions that you think of tomorrow, please feel free to give us a call at 1-800-TI-CARES or send us an email at ti-cares@ti.com. Thanks so much, Ellen and Fred, for everything you shared tonight. I think I'm late to the thanks party because a lot of people are already sending in how much they appreciated everything you shared tonight. So I just want to jump on the thank you train. So Ellen and Fred, again, thanks so much for everything.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Ellen.
Thanks, everyone, and we hope to see you back online real soon. Have a great night.